Hello everyone, today I'm going to talk about Nuxt3 in action. I'm Sebastien Chopin, I'm the co-creator of Nuxt, and you can find me on the social network with the @Nuxt username. I am mostly active on GitHub and Twitter. So let's talk about Nuxt version 3 and the internal changes. We now support Webpack 5 and Vite, still in experimental mode. We have PostCSS 8, ESBuild, which makes the build much faster. It's rewritten in TypeScript. We also created the Vue bundle renderer for Vue 3 in order to have this server-side rendering. And on top of that, we have the module utils. We have a new rendering engine, which is called Nitro for Nuxt3, backported to Nuxt2 as a module. I recommend you to see Daniel Rowe talk about this. And for more details about Nuxt3 and the internals and how it works, I recommend to see Puya Parsa talk. With Nuxt3, it all starts with the app.vue file, which is the entry point for your Nuxt app. And this is the minimal example. It is optional if you want directly to use the pages directory. We have a default app.vue for that. It is perfect for global data fetching, and it is also great for landing pages where you don't need Vue router, which produce a smaller bundle size. But if we talk about routing, which is really powerful, and many of Nuxt users actually use the routing system, we have been working with Eduardo to support Vue Router 4. We changed the way we parse the pages directory, and instead of using the underscore, we use the brackets now, which open the possibility to have multiple parameters for one page. We can catch the sub-pages, kind of a wildcard, by using this bracket and 3 dots, by prefixing with 3 dots. We support the 4.4 page as well as the underscore error page for any error which is not 4.4. Now we have this underscore, which is ignoring all the pages or used for special pages. And thanks to Vue Router automatic sorting, you're now able to add routes with the plugins or with Nuxt modules. And we united Nuxt and Nuxt into one single component called Nuxt page. Data fetching is one of the biggest work we have done regarding the Vue part. And we wanted to unify async data and fetch from Nuxt2. So after brainstorming with Evan Yu, some people from the Vue core team and as well as the Nuxt team, we are based from the composition API. You can pause the navigation until it's fetched. We support server-side rendering and iteration, which is important for us. It can work at the component level, so even a component can stop the client-side navigation or defer if necessary. And we also support caching, also known as state web validate. And obviously you can use any data fetcher, like currently inside async data or fetch. And more updates, we have the auto import of plugins. Static will become public. So this is more like a standard of PHP, but let's have the best directory structure ever. We renamed app.html to document.html since it's the HTML document, and now we have app.vue, so it avoids the confusion. We have hooks, which are really useful for plugins to hook themselves into the Vue behavior and change before hydration, after hydration, or even in page transitions. We have the support for multiple apps, aka theming. And we have this functions directory as well as this server directory coming. And of course, we have first-class serverless support. Let's take a look at the demo now. So in this demo, I'm going to show Nuxt3 in action. So I already installed Nuxt3 package, which is still private at the moment, but for the purpose of this conference, I'm using this. And I added two scripts, one for development and one for build. We have a git ignore, which is including the node module, .nuxt directory and .output directory. That is the new output for Nuxt3. This one might disappear, and you're going to have more explanation by listening to Daniel talk about Nuxt Nitro. So let's start Nuxt in development. So now we have same our server on localhost 3000, and we have our welcome page, link the documentation, the Twitter account for the latest news, and the instruction how to remove this welcome page. We can have an app.view, which is new in Nuxt3, or create a page index. I'm going to create an app.view page at first, and let's have hello Vuejs Amsterdam, and let's save. I need to refresh at the moment, but of course, once we will release, we will have the host module replacement for that. Once the page is set up, we do have the host module replacement working. One new feature we have is the ability to do data fetching inside the app.view. So you don't have to use Nuxt server init action if you use to Nuxt2. I'm going to import async data composable. Use async data composable from Nuxt app composable. I'm going to instantiate the async data, and I'm going to do an API call. So we have data, and I'm going to use async data. Like in Nuxt2, async data takes a function and has to return the data, but this function is asynchronous. Here I'm directly giving the promise return $fetch. We have access to $fetch globally inside our application, and I have a placeholder API for that. I'm going to name it mountains, and I will return the mountains here and display them here. Great. So let's refresh, and we do have our list of mountains, and if I look at the source code, we can see that they have been server rendered. Great. Now let's add our first page. So for this, I'm going to create a pages directory, and of course an index.view page. And inside I'm going to say notes. Let's create a notes application here. I'm going to keep the script. And in order to display my index page, I need to use the Nuxt page component. And here I have my index page, also with hot module replacement. So to make this demo nicer, I'm going to use the Tailwind CSS CDN. We have CSS working, but we don't have this extract CSS. We are working on it. So at the moment, for the purpose of this demo, I'm using the CDN. And let's add some style here and here. Great. So now I have my demo. If I go to 4.4 page, we can see the default 4.4 page by Nuxt. But if I create a 4.4.view page and say, sorry, nothing there, and here I need to refresh, we can see our custom 4.4 page. Great. So now let's see a new feature we're going to land is the server directory. And I'm quite excited about this. As you know, we have the server middleware. So if I create, let's say, middleware log.js, here I can have Nitro saying me, we have a global middleware. And here I can have rec and res and next. And I can console log rendering rec.url and calling next. If I refresh, I can see my log here for every page. And if I don't call next, obviously it will wait, like a express middleware. Great. So now let's create an API directory. So let's remove the middleware. We don't need it here. And API hello.js. And let me export a function. I don't need rec and res. I just want to say hello world. And let's check the API hello endpoint. And here we go. We have our hello endpoint. And as you can see, it automatically changed. I just need to refresh the API endpoint, but we don't have to restart the whole Nuxt application. So you can keep working on your node, on your front end, and on your backend at the same time without having to restart the server. For my nodes app, I'm going to create a small DB util to store all of my nodes that I can save on the server. And I'm going to create an API to add and delete nodes. First, I'm going to create a service directory and a db.js file. I will directly copy and paste since this is not really view related, but basically what we have here is I'm creating a node path in my home directory, which is called Nuxt3 node.json. And my nodes is an object. I'm trying to parse this file and assign it to nodes, and I'm transforming node as a reactive object thanks to view reactivity. And I will watch this node object, and every time it changes, I will save it directly. So we have our basic database service. Of course, you may want to use production database like MongoDB, Postgre, or even FaunaDB for serverless database. I'm going to paste directly the nodes directory I have created, which is basically doing REST operation on the nodes object that will be saved automatically. So if I go to API nodes list, I have an empty array, and I'm ready to start using this API for my application. First, let's add some style to our nodes. What I want now is an input to text, obviously to add my new node. The placeholder, add a node, and on keyup.enter, I want to add the node. To make it nice. Great. Now what I need to do is to be able to add my nodes and push it. Let's list them. So for that I will copy paste directly. If I have some nodes, so I need a nodes array, I will simply link it and display the node and the last updated. So like we have seen for the app.view, I'm going to import the use async data composable from Nuxt. Then in my page, I can also use async setup. I will instantiate async data. So I'm ready to fetch my nodes. And the beauty of $fetch, which is included in Nuxt, is when I'm calling my API, when I will do the server-side rendering, when Nuxt will do the server-side rendering, it won't make another API call, it will directly call the function. And let's return the nodes here. I'm refreshing. I have no node, obviously. Let's add our new node, which is an empty string that we use inside of vModels. And let's create our first method called add node. So if the new node is empty, we just bypass it. And what I want to do here is call my API endpoint, which is add, and I'm going to use the params to actually give the title with this.newNode. And since I want the last updated to be first, I'm going to push it directly this.nodes.unshift node. Okay. Hello. Yes, we have our node. What I need to do is also to reset new node to an empty string. Welcome. Nice. Now what I have is I want to be able to go inside the node directly, paste on the slug. So in order to do this, I'm going to create another page. New thing in Nuxt3. In Nuxt2 you had to do _slug.view. Now the underscore are automatically skipped, and instead we're taking this bracket approach. This will also allow you to have multiple params inside one route. So here let's call it slug.view. I'm going to do the same here and show my node. So if I go here, of course I have to refresh. I have show my node. Great. Quickly let's add a link back to the listing of nodes. Okay. And what I want for behavior is, instead of unshifting, I want to go to this node.slug, so I can directly edit it once I created it. And nodes number 3. Great, I'm inside of it. Something to note, which is interesting, is if I refresh, you can see that my whole nodes have been server rendered. Like in Nuxt2, it's working for Nuxt3 and with Vue 3, obviously. Okay, now let's display our node. I will paste some templating. What I want is an input with the title, so I can edit the title directly, as well as a text area to display the node body, and a delete node link button, sorry. So same here, I want to use async data, and I also want to use root to get the parameter. So let's write our async setup method. I'm going to get the params from useRoot, and I'm going to get the async data method from use async data. Let's fetch our node. $fetch /API /nodes/get, and I'm giving the params, which has the slug directly. Then I'm returning this node. Here I have my title, I have my body, and I can delete the node. But currently I can't, it won't do anything. So let's add our method to delete the node. Methods async delete node. I will directly call $fetch API node delete. And for the params, I do have this .node here, so I'm giving the slug from it. And once it's done, I want to go back to the home page. Great, let's try. Delete. Perfect. It's deleting the node. Last thing I want to do is to be able to update my node that it will automatically save, so when I refresh I have my note updated. So for this there is a multiple way. What I want to do is directly watch from the note, and thanks to Vue3 reactivity I can import watch from Vue. I can watch my note. Something to note here is the data we send back is a ref. So if you want to watch for it once it's updated, we have to use note.value. Here we have our updated note, and we can call our endpoint API note save, and I will directly give us a param the whole note object. Let's see what it does. I have my saver here, and every time I type it say saving notes. I refresh, I have my notes which are updated. But this is a lot of API call. If I look at my network here, refresh, I want to debounce this. So Anthony, if you created a debounce watch composable, so I'm going to use Vue use core, which is a great set of utils of composable for Vue3 as well as Vue2. And instead of importing watch from Vue, I'm going to import Vue use core debounce watch, and I'm going to give a debounce of 400 milliseconds. So what it will do now is when I will update, it will only make an API call once I'm done typing after 400 milliseconds. And that's it. We have our note page that we can edit. One thing I want to show is you can control the async data behavior. So let's update our get call. And what I want is to wait for 1 second before being able to fetch a note, like simulating a low connection or a slow API response. Await new promise. Here I get the resolve, and I'm going to use a set timeout to call resolved after 1 second. And here, as you can see, it takes 1 second. Async data composable is acting like Nuxt3 async data by default, but the power of this composable, even if it's more verbose to write, is that you can now say, I want you to defer the navigation. By setting defer true, we are telling Nuxt to not wait for the async data before displaying the page. So what's happening is note will be undefined. So when I'm clicking here, it say cannot read property title of undefined because we use it here. So instead, I'm also going to get this pending that I can use here. If it's pending, fetching note, and I'm going to display this whole block once we are done fetching. And here we change the behavior. So we have instant feedback that we are fetching nodes, so we can display some placeholder. Something I also really like is the ability to move my whole node.view component, which is, let's say, this edit page, directly inside the component. And here I'm going to use to display the node component. And at the moment we don't have the auto import of component, but it's coming really soon. I need to import components node, and obviously giving it like the old-fashioned way. And if I refresh, we can see our node working. We have the data fetching. And what's interesting also with server defer true is we still have the server rendering happening. If I want to disable it, I can say server false. And now if I refresh, I won't have the server-side rendering, and once the app is mounted, it will do the data fetching for us. And if I want to keep the default behavior, which is defer false and server true, my component can now block the navigation before displaying my node. So that is for the data fetching. One last thing I want to show you is the ability of create plugins. Hello.js. And let's console log my hello plugin. And refresh the page. We have it here and we have it here. So automatically Nuxt3 will auto import the plugin. If I want to have a plugin only on client and I refresh, I have my hello plugin only on client, and same for the server. Like in Nuxt2, you can export a function. And what you get here is a Nuxt object, which is a bit different. It's not a context anymore, because right inside Nuxt you have access to Nuxt.app, which is the app instance. So you can use app.use to install any Vue 3 plugins. And we also provide a provide method where you can inject hello here. And let's hack our way, because I don't provide directly Nuxt at the moment. And here I have access to window.nuxt.hello. And I have my Nuxt plugin working. Also, we are implementing the hooks. So I can listen when the Vue app has been created. App created. And let's have also our mounted. Let's refresh. I have app created on the server side, also on the client side. Then I have the suspense experimental flag warning, and then I have app mounted. These allow you to install or do some behavior depending on the hook, and directly plug your plugins inside the Nuxt engine. Great. So now let's build our app for production. So we have the Webpack build at the moment, and then we have Nitro, which is generating everything inside the public directory, and we also have the server. So this is our chunks, and this is the server chunk, client and server. And we don't have Nuxt start anymore in order to run, so this is able to minimize the output as much as possible, so you can run it with Node or any other engine supporting JavaScript. And that's it. I have my production application working. You can see that it loads chunk on demand. And yes, we have our application working. So now the big question is, when will it be open source? We have been discussing a lot, and we have a big roadmap to make it as compatible and easy to migrate from Nuxt2, and this is taking a lot of time, obviously. We want to open a private alpha for the internal contributors for Q1, so this quarter 2021, and we want to open a beta version for the second quarter of this year. I want to talk about the Nuxt community and all the people supporting us. We have 13,000 members on our Discord channel. I'm really happy to see all of this conversation. I don't answer all the time, but it makes me really happy to see people discussing about Nuxt and potential features or bugs. We now hit 50,000 followers on Twitter. Thank you very much for following us. We have reached 12,000 contributors on GitHub. Around 10,000 actually commented on issue or created issues, and more than 2,000 has a pull request who got merged into the Nuxt ecosystem, from the Nuxt repository to the documentation to the modules. And we have more than 400 donators on Open Collective and on GitHub sponsors. Thank you so much for your support. It means a lot to us. And that's it. It was a bit short, but thank you very much. And you can follow us on Twitter, on Nuxt.js account, or my personal account @Nuxt, and I will be glad to answer any questions. Thank you.